We are on the lunch break of day 4 of the questioning of Peter Francis, the undercover police officer who infiltrated anti-racist groups and reported on family justice campaigns between 1993 and 1997. Uniquely, he went whistleblower in 2010. I'm joined by Heather Mendick. What have you made of what he's been talking about in the last little bit?
I think it's been really interesting because, like, normally he's been talking about sexual relationships he had. Well, he's been asked about those, and so he's talked about them briefly. That he had one undercover, and normally we're hearing about it from someone who has denied it. Certainly denied, if not directly denied it, denied the pain that was caused, won't talk openly about the police management's attitude towards it. And obviously, because he's whistleblower, we're getting a very different take on it from him. And I think that's quite revealing. His relationships were all very casual. And he says that was deliberate. They were a series of one-night stands. 2 with activists, 5 not with activists.
Yeah, but what I thought was particularly interesting was that the 5 that weren't with activists, which were women he met when he was out partying, he met them alongside activists.
Yes.
So he's socialising with his activist group and then meeting women at those points.
What comes across from Peter Francis, he was not happy with his own life, and that he created a life through being an activist that he was happier with and wanted to extend. And part of that, I think, was going out partying, having sex, being the kind of person that he sort of wanted to be.
I mean, I think this is very much, this came across really strongly, I think. He said he was going out every Friday and every Saturday night, taking recreational drugs, dancing, partying, drinking heavily. That this is kind of part of that kind of social license. This what we've heard is referred to as the dark playground. Yeah. The undercover officers were given the opportunity to live. He said that he wasn't he was a very unfaithful husband.
Yes.
That he was never faithful to his wife, even before they got married. That he said that if he had he tried to draw a distinction between the fact that he was off duty by the time he was having sex in the evenings because he wasn't being paid enough overtime to cover that, and that if he was in character as Peter Johnson, but if he'd gone home and returned to being Peter Francis, he would have then gone out and had sex with someone then.
Yes, that's it. That's the thing, isn't it? It's about. I mean, that was an interesting thing as well about, do people need...
Sorry, the microphones have...
I am paired.
We might,
shit, they're on red.
Yeah, they're on red. I don't know if people can hear the sound. I might see if I can change the settings. Sorry about this. I'm not sure what to do about tech problems when edit the setting. Okay. I'm not sure if people can hear. If anybody could hear if there's an issue with the mic, could people let us know? I'm not sure. Maybe if I can. Okay, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
If I just change that to
the MacBook Pro one. Yeah.
Sorry. So the sound might not be as good. I do apologise for that. I'm not sure how much
we'll talk loudly.
Yeah, we'll talk loudly. I might be able to edit that to make it a bit louder. I'm not sure why that's happened. I do apologize. As ever, I'm still very much learning how to use this equipment, and there's been a few problems with the audio. So yeah, we were saying about the
yes, there was this question that comes up, which is a kind of interesting question about, is it easy not to have sex? Which is part of the thing which is underlying a lot of this stuff, which is, well, you couldn't expect men not to have sex. And there's certain attitudes that Peter Francis displays. He is less overtly sexist than the others, and he certainly distances himself from the really, really extreme misogyny. But he has this very weird idea, which he brought up a couple of days, I think on Monday, but has brought back again today, which is that if he'd been told not to have sex, he wouldn't have had sex, and that would force them to get an alternative approach. And the alternative approach that he has obviously thought a lot about and talked to other officers about was to have women who rotated between police officer women, who rotated between the different male officers, who could be wheeled out as a girlfriend to then say, this is why I'm not having sex, which is horribly sexist as an idea. The idea that women's role in the police force is to service male officers who are doing the glamorous work. I don't think he realizes in advocating this, he thinks he's being anti-sexist. And he's actually revealing that kind of deep idea about women's role being to help men. And so it's very complicated what's going on in his head, I think, about his own sexuality, attitudes of the other officers, because he's often trying to distance himself. There's another bit where he says, "Oh, I wasn't someone who was making calls from Heathrow Airport to dump women. I wasn't someone who was followed up. I did it right." There's a lot of Peter Francis about, I did better than these other officers. My tradecraft was better. I was more mature about it. But actually, there's a lot of deep-seated attitudes that come from, I guess, that culture that it must be hard to get rid of.
I mean, there's no suggestion that he's tried to get rid of that. I mean, I think these misogyny goes deep, and you know, like you say, he doesn't realize. I don't think he realizes how misogynistic some of his comments have been. I mean, particularly the stuff around these one-night stands. He said, "Oh, they were attracted to me. I was attracted to them, and they were attracted to me." And I mean, this sort of. I mean, this does kind of raise that idea of collateral intrusion. It's just like, oh, these didn't really matter. These weren't my target group, so it was okay, you know.
Yeah, and then he did talk to. I mean, Christine Green is the other officer the female officer who would have been around at the same time as him. He never had any conversations with her, and that also reveals the kind of way in which the culture he was in was very much a male culture, and he wasn't interested in actually seeing women as equals, I think, then, and probably not now from the comments he's making. And I think if you go into the police, maybe you have those attitudes already. They're very prevalent in our culture, right? It's not just cops who do this kind of shit. And it's likely that a lot more men, if they're given this kind of license, would behave in absolutely appalling ways, and actually already behave in semi-appalling ways and are dishonest and so on towards women. And it's very revealing, troubling, but also interesting to think about these questions through the spy cops kind of inadvertent social experiment.
Yeah. I mean, there are deeper questions about misogynistic culture and male entitlement that really are raised by the whole thing. Beyond the policing aspect, the way the police abused women, but it's about men particularly.
Yeah, and the other things which come in is when Helen Steele started really pursuing what had happened with John Dines, and the kind of the double attitude they had towards her in the police. I mean, great respect for Horror pushing it, and as an activist, but also really, again, that misogyny and that disregard and disrespect. And that comes out a lot, that attitude to the Wearies, which is the first time we've actually had a definition of why we were called Wearies, is from Peter Francis, that just like they're weary to be around because always talking about politics, everything comes back to politics. And
guilty.
Yes, I mean, it's true, but that attitude that's boring. Whereas, I mean, what did everything come back to for them?
Right. I mean, this is it. I mean, it didn't seem like somebody has such a hollow life.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
but you find it more interesting to be around Wearies than you do to be in your own marriage and family. It's very telling, right? And all of them, not all of them, but probably about half of them enjoyed being an activist.
Certainly more than half, I would say.
Yeah.
Almost none of them wanted to withdraw when the time came. That seemed to be almost pretty much universal. We were taken through the officers who Peter Francis overlapped with, but also some of the ones that he didn't, and what he knew about sexual relationships that they had. We saw a little glimpse into some of the areas we're not normally allowed to hear about. Some of the completely anonymized officers, these are the ones that don't even have a cipher. He was asked a question about one of them, which I've never seen before. Just asking, did they have sex relations? He was like, yes. There was a lot of writing down of answers during this last section.
He's obviously treated as a very important witness. I was worried that they would try and smear him and say, well, you weren't telling the truth about that, therefore you're not telling the truth about this other stuff, which is important to our side of things. But they're not trying to do that. They're treating him with a lot of respect. And he's being used as a source on everything. And they ask about whether people knew that John Dines had a sexual relationship with Helen Steele. And he says, everyone kind of knew, but no one said it. Because there was no way she would be doing what she was doing. So that idea that it was in the culture and that everyone knew is very clear from him in a way everyone else has been denying, and that's really important.
Yeah, it really is. One of the other ones that he he referred to was supposedly an undercover officer left his wife whilst on the field and stayed in the field with a new woman who he'd met. This was someone from the time of HN86's time undercover, which would have been the early 70s. I'm not sure exactly when HN86 was deployed in the field, but I think it's before Rick Gibson. It's been very early. And like the fact that we really don't know anything about this. This is relates to tranche 1. We're in tranche 3 now. It just shows how much of the inquiry has missed or glossed over events that it should have dealt with already.
So the whole organisations of tranches makes some sense, but actually doesn't work. Like there were key witnesses that you needed to hear early on because they provide a framework within which everything else can happen. If you go chronologically, you never get that structural framework, which makes it very hard, not just for us interacting with it as sort of, I mean, you're interacting with it very seriously, but for me, I'm kind of dipping in and out a lot more. It's very difficult to get that framework. At first, there was stuff happening in it when I first started watching that I did not understand. And there's still stuff like you're pointing out that I didn't pick up on because I don't have that structure. And it must be hard for the inquiry team. You often get, you're right, they're writing things down because they're like, oh, okay, that's filling in little bits of their framework. If they'd really thought about it, they would have gone higher up to managers and mapped out the whole of the SDS through time, and then they would have had a framework they could dip in and out of and really explain. They would maybe even done thematic stuff around these are important witnesses on how on the sexual relationships, or these are important witnesses on the stuff about blacklisting, which has been really significant, and it's very disjointed the way we've had that information. So it's not, doesn't make sense the way they've done it, but a lot of the things don't make sense, but this reminds us. A
great deal of things don't make sense at all, quite frankly. There was a couple of weird questions about, like, was there anything of the James Bond about, I mean, and just this like sort of frivolous kind of reference to the way in which things happened, which, like he said that nothing was of James Bond, but then he said, well, James Thompson maybe.
I mean, there is a disjunction between like the slight glamorization of this, which you get from the inquiry people, and which is a little bit indulged by some of the officers. With Peter Francis, you don't get that indulged because he clearly is damaged by the whole thing. And at one stage he said, if I'd known beforehand what would have happened, I would never have done it.
I mean, it was telling just before we went to lunch. We went to an early lunch, and the reason was that he was going to be asked about the impact on his mental health. And he said, can I have an early lunch, please? And we'll deal with that afterwards. I would imagine that's probably going to be Bar's last area of questioning. And then we're going to get further questions after that. I don't know that for sure, but that's what I'm hoping. And, that seems likely.
He talked about recommendations. He was asking about that as well, which is also interesting because he never directly asks about, or very rarely directly asks about recommendations.
I mean, it is part of the remit of the inquiry. I mean, essentially, that's what the inquiry is for. It's to learn the lessons for, like, future undercover deployments. Which, like, obviously is something as activists we're not interested. I mean, like, I'm interested, but I'm against undercover deployment. I'm against the police in general, right? But it really does. If you're slightly negative about the police before you come into this, you will fucking hate them after sitting through some of this. It's really grim. The attitudes. How embedded those are, But yes, I think he's being given specific questions or recommendations because it's a sign of, again, his privileged position within this inquiry, where he's the only police whistleblower, which is tragic in itself. I mean, so many officers, I hope the sound's working okay. Apologies if it's been a bit difficult. Hopefully I'll get that sorted by the next time we do a video. Is there anything else you want to add?
No. That was
thanks for joining us.
It's interesting.
It's very interesting.
Stay tuned.
There's only a few more hours now of Peter Francis giving evidence, and then we finish for the week, and we basically move on to witnesses who were people who were affected by the deployment of Mark Jenner, criminally Mark Cassidy. That starts on Monday with Alison, who we deceived into a long-term intimate relationship. That'll be interesting as well. But
indeed.
Cheers for now. See you in a bit.
Okay.